How many boys in the past 40 years have said that they want to be an astronaut? Since I was young, I've learned about forced propulsion through stomp rockets. I've learned about gas propulsion through Alka-Seltzer rockets. Five, four, three, two, one, blast off! Oh well. And finally, I have learned about launching model rockets with an actual engine. I think that would be illegal to launch in here, though. Neil Armstrong said when he stepped on the moon, one small step for man, one giant leap, finally, for mankind. So where have we left? Considering the condition of our space program today, what progress has been made? Today, we're going to look at these steps that have been made in our space program. We'll question whether or not NASA is dead in the water. And finally, will we be leaping anymore in the future? I submit to you today the idea that privatization of the space industry is the better way to continue taking giant leaps for mankind. Space considerations started as early as AD 160, when a Greek satirist wrote True History, the first fictional account of a trip to the moon. The first satellite went into outer space on October 4th, 1957. It was called Sputnik, and then Sputnik 2, which carried a dog named Laika, the very first space traveler. The U.S. began to be afraid for its national security, so in 1958, NASA begins and launches Explorer 1 and Vanguard 1, both satellites. In October 1959, they sent up monkeys, which all returned unharmed. In the meantime, the Soviet Union sends up Luna 1, which escapes the Earth's gravitational field, flies past the moon, and orbits around the sun like an actual planet. 1961 brings the very first human sent into outer space and orbits the Earth. 1963, 3 Soviet cosmonauts orbit the Earth in the very first multi-passenger spaceship. In 1965, a Soviet cosmonaut is the very first man to walk in outer space, and the United States orbited Gemini 3, the very first maneuverable manned spacecraft. Then came the Apollo missions. On July 20th, 1969, after 12-year space race, the very first moonwalk happened. Sorry, wrong moonwalk. The very first moonwalk happened. In 1983, Pioneer 10 becomes the very first man-made vehicle to fly beyond the known limits of the solar system. David Chandler said, in words President George Bush quoted from a news magazine, the Apollo program was the best return on investment since Leonardo da Vinci bought himself a sketch pad. He continues on, Admiral Richard Truly, NASA administrator, concurs, our space program is an integral part of American education, our competitiveness, and the growth of U.S. technology. Compared with other forms of investment, the return is outstanding. A payback of $7 or $8 for every $1 invested over a period of a decade or so has been calculated for the Apollo program. It has been further estimated that because of the potential for technology transfer in spin-off industries, every $1 spent on basic research in space today will generate nearly $40 worth of economic growth on Earth. That was the Apollo program. The space shuttle was a different story. Recent NASA estimates pegged the space shuttle's cost through the end of last year at $209 billion, yielding a per-flight cost of nearly $1.6 billion, and the orbiter fleet never flew more than 9 missions in a single year. So, what is happening now? NASA made a $753 million deal with Russia for 6 trips to the International Space Station. Now, however, we're going to pay $63 million per seat to allow a dozen NASA astronauts round trips to and from the International Space Station. The NASA astronauts will be traveling on the Russian spacecraft named Soyuz in 2014 and 15. John Glenn said February 20th, 2012, "It's unseemly to me that here we are, supposedly the world's greatest spacefaring nation, and we don't even have a way to get back and forth to our own International Space Station." Unquote. So why do we even have a space program at all? Well, our space program has done many important things for our country as well, such as the Mars missions, which created tough armor. The Mars Pathfinder and Mars rover equipment was designed to crash land with a cage of airbags to help cushion the fall. How many of you are driving home today in a car filled with airbags? The material had to be lightweight and to be able to withstand extreme temperatures. The material also had to be tough enough to keep the airbags inflated as they bounced along Mars's sharp, rocky surface. And thus came turtle skin protective gear, a material that can withstand punctures through needles, knives, and even bullets. This is used mostly by police and military personnel to help keep them safe. How many of you sleep on a Tempur-Pedic bed? Does your cell phone fit in the palm of your hand? Have you ever heard of nanoceramics being used in the medical industry? Thank our space program for these and many, many other great inventions. So, considering how it looks financially bleak for the U.S. and NASA program, the future looks good for astronauts. There are several private corporations that run space programs, but there are actually 4 that are contracted with NASA. They are Blue Origin, Sierra Nevada, SpaceX, and Boeing. However, I'm mainly going to be talking about SpaceX. SpaceX is the 7th organization and the first private organization in history to launch a spacecraft into orbit and have it return safely, beat only by the United States, Russia, China, Japan, India, and the European Space Agency. Currently, they have 4 types of spacecraft: Falcon 1 and 9, Dragon, and Falcon Heavy. So far, SpaceX and its CEO, Elon Musk, who is also the co-founder of PayPal and Tesla, have won 2 awards for achievement in space. They are the Heinlein Prize and the 2011 Space Achievement Award. The Falcon Heavy is even going to replace the Space Shuttle, although Falcon Heavy will do a lot more than replace it. It can haul more than twice as much as the Space Shuttle. On December 8, 2010, SpaceX became the first commercial company in history to re-enter a spacecraft from Earth orbit. SpaceX launched its Dragon spacecraft into orbit atop a Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. The Dragon spacecraft orbited the Earth at speeds greater than 17,000 miles per hour, re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, and landed less than 1 mile away from the center of the targeted landing zone in the Pacific Ocean. So, right now, we're paying $63 million per seat with Russia. SpaceX has estimated that by comparison, flights on a man-rated version of its Dragon spacecraft would cost approximately $20 million per flight. Despite the dramatically lower cost, SpaceX has emphatically stated that safety is one of the key drivers of its spacecraft. This is not as far into the future as you may think. Experts estimate that we'll have people launching into outer space within the next couple of years, as SpaceX is currently contracted with NASA to use the existing facilities at Cape Canaveral. The goals for Dragon's next mission include launching into the International Space Station and latching itself with a robotic arm to the station. So, through Neil Armstrong's quote, I hope you agree that if we make the space industry independent of the government, we can keep taking giant leaps with mankind. So, today I've talked about the history of our space program, the present condition, and the future of our space program. So now you know that little boys, for the next 30 years, can still wish to be an astronaut. Thank you.